everyone, it's Sam from Safe with Sam. Okay, so we have a letter from Tumblr. I'll read it out to you. Dear Sam, any advice on dealing with anxiety attack and OCD tendencies? I've been trying on my own for a while to figure out why I'm the way I am and how to deal with each of them. But lately both seem to be getting significantly worse. Now, anxiety is something that is extremely common. It's more common, they say, in females than males, but males do suffer with it as well. One of the things I think that's really important is to understand what we're anxious of. What tends to happen with anxiety is, if you've ever experienced it, is you get an overwhelming sense of fear or dread that something will happen. Now, in these modern days where we are subjected to the news, which can be very violent, and media that can be very violent, films, particularly horror movies, and the way some of our films are done nowadays, they're so realistic that the mind isn't really equipped for seeing things that are quite either violent or scary. So what tends to happen is that we have this, biologically we have adrenaline, which kicks in and it helps us in times of fear, when we're faced with danger. So when we're watching something that triggers in the mind and the mind says, whoa, hang on a minute, that scares me to death, we then have a chemical reaction in the body. Now, I'm not medical, so I'm not going to go into the medical side of things, other than that I know that if you have a frightening or scary thought, biologically you react. So your body reacts as a consequence. Now, not everybody is aware of their thoughts. So what tends to happen is you're aware physically before you are aware mentally. So the physical signs could be, for instance, feeling sweaty or feeling sick. You just get this sense of, I need to run, but I'm not sure where to run. You just know you want to get away from something. But the odd thing is and nowadays there isn't anything particularly to be scared about. If you're in your home or if you're with friends, there's nothing really at all to be scared about. So you tend to get this panicked feeling of, oh my God, I need to get out, I feel claustrophobic. And anxiety can do that to all of us. It's understanding your thoughts. So it's kind of trying to get to the point where you're aware of your thoughts before you react physically. Because your physical reactions are there to keep you safe. That's what they're meant to do. It's to keep you alive. So there isn't really much to worry about in that respect. What's worrying is the thought and where that might be coming from. Now, years ago, when I was younger, hopefully not in the dark ages, but when I was younger, we weren't really subjected to the internet, mobile phones. We didn't really watch anything more frightening than Jaws. So we didn't really suffer with anxiety quite as badly. I think it is getting worse with more modern day technology, where things that are frightening are coming into our home. And our homes used to be somewhere where we felt really, really safe. So it's kind of understanding that. Your home is completely safe, but the thoughts you're having about things that scare you aren't. So there are a number of things that you can do for yourself. The first is to work out, what are you scared of? What is frightening you? So when you get that horrible sense in your stomach that you feel a bit sick, a bit shaky, you might want to run away, now's the time to question, okay, what have I just been thinking about? Have I watched something recently that's really scared me? Has someone said something? Am I frightened I'm going to lose someone? Or am I scared that I'm going to fail my exams? Huge anxiety around exams at the moment. There's also social anxiety. People get scared of tripping up in front of people or getting too drunk and being sick in front of someone and making a complete fool of themselves. And they're actually frightened of judgment. They're frightened that people won't like them because they've made a fool of themselves and they're not perceived as being perfect. So often anxiety will come out of that as well. So when you're having all those physical reactions, as I said, look at your thought patterns. They will not be positive, they will be a negative thought pattern. And then challenge it. Is it your thought Or is it a thought that's coming from the media, in from a book, in from a film, from somebody something said? If it is, then now's the time to challenge it. Is there anything to actually be scared of? Now, I remember working with a young man where we discussed anxiety. Anxiety is a really, really important part of life. We can't get rid of it. It's incredibly important and it keeps us safe. But high levels of anxiety are not. They're not good for us. They cause stress on the body, they cause stress on the brain, on the mind. And over time, it's not a good way to start developing bad habits of just being anxious all the time. So it is, again, something we need to look at. And the way I put it to him, although it might be quite simplistic, but it seemed to work for him, is a little thought would come into his mind. And then I said to him, you get a little pipe pump and you pump the thought up, so the thought gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it appeared to be much bigger than him and completely overwhelmed him. Now, the way he made it bigger was by constantly thinking about it, overthinking about it, rather than accepting the initial thought that came in that was tiny, minute thought, and then just leaving it. He would go over and over and over. So it's looking at patterns of behaviour, and we can have many habits. We have physical habits and we have mental habits. One of the mental habits that we tend to have, and this is seen more in young people, is you go into your bedroom, you put the moody music on, and you'll sort of lie there thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking. Whilst this is okay in most cases, if you're in an anxious state, it's not a good thing to do because it fuels the anxiety even more and then sends the body into panic. And this is when you develop a panic attack. What then can happen is, because it appeared to come from nowhere and people don't really understand anxiety very well, it's incredibly frightening, literally frightening. It can be quite disabling actually. So the fear takes over. Understandably, they don't want to feel that again. So what tends to happen is that they will try and put strategies or something in their life to control the way they think and feel. And this is when we can sometimes see OCD coming in. It's not unusual for somebody with anxiety to have, like you say, mild OCD symptoms, where they might, for instance, if they've had a good day, they'll wash their hair in the same shampoo they washed it in the day before. Or they might decide that yesterday was a great day, so I'm going to do everything that I did yesterday in today. And unfortunately, over time, that does form a habit. So it's little things like that that really help if you can challenge them. So remember, the first thing to look at is when you're feeling those physical feelings, what am I scared of? What have I just been thinking of that has created that physical reaction? So if you have a negative thought, you get a negative reaction. If you have a positive thought, you get a positive reaction. And that's quite a simplistic way to look at it, but I find that is the easiest way to explain to clients actually how anxiety works. If you get a negative thought that comes in and you're aware that it's stressing you or it's making you feel quite anxious, be aware of how your body's starting to feel. Think about a time when something scared you. Think about a moment in a horror movie where we've all gone, that moment of, oh, that really scared me. Right, think about that and what it was physically doing as well as mentally doing at the same time. Now, if that fearful thought hadn't gone in, we wouldn't have had that reaction where you get really scared. Try doing it and see what happens, and that is actually how anxiety manifests. Now, that's obviously, like I say, it's not something good to have constantly going over and over in your mind. Now try and do it from a positive point of view. So think about something that makes you feel really happy. For instance, if I think about Mr. Kipling, he fills my heart with joy the moment I think about him. You know, the silly little things he does and the fact that he insists on trying to sleep in our bed every night. It's something that's light-hearted, it's funny, and it makes me feel great. What it doesn't do is cause me any anxiety. So that way you can work out what is it scares me and what doesn't scare me. And if you're aware of your own body and then your mind, very quickly you start to challenge your mind, you'll be able to quickly put the two things together, and this will hopefully give you some strategies towards helping you with your anxiety. If it gets very bad, it's quite unpleasant to live with. It can be managed, and in some cases it can be managed to a point where you're very, very rarely aware of it. As I said, we cannot get rid of anxiety. It is incredibly important, and some of the most driven people on the planet and those that are the most successful are actually quite anxious because they use their anxiety as a way of forcing themselves forward and driving them into whatever they're going to do. It's not unusual for a pop star, for instance, to feel incredibly scared before they get on stage. Now, the reason they feel like this is because the moment that they stand up on that stage, they're suddenly aware of, 30,000 people expecting them to do something remarkable, when all they have to do is just be them, because that's all those 30,000 people expect, and obviously to have a good voice. But it's about those expectations and those judgments from others that we fear the most. And ultimately, we do fear being frightened. I think if we're all honest, and I include myself in that, one of my biggest fears is being frightened. I don't like being frightened. So there are choices to make as well. If, for instance, you're quite an anxious person before you go to bed, don't watch the news. Don't read books that are going to, like horror books or books that you've got to try and work out who's murdered who and things like that. Don't read those type of things just before you go to bed, because all that'll do is stir up those anxious thoughts. So you need something that's light-hearted, a bit funny. That helps, especially if you've got a good sense of humour. That really helps to lift your mood, relax, and it kind of gives the mind a bit of time off from worrying too much as well. Anyway, I hope this helped a little bit. If you really do struggle with anxiety and it does get worse, pop along to the doctor. They can help you incredibly with anxiety. They understand it. You could be referred to somebody who can help you understand what triggers it and look at your own patterns. It is a good idea to keep a diary. So you might find that, okay, last week on Thursday I was anxious, but I'm not anxious anymore. I haven't been anxious now for 3 weeks, but actually something's re-triggered it. And what tends to happen then, if you keep it a diary, is if you go to your doctor, or even if you talk it over with your family and friends, what you might begin to see is a pattern happening. So it could be hormonal, for instance, or it could be that events are triggering it. So you might notice that it's just before a night out on a Saturday night, or it's just before you're due to take an exam. All those things. So we can start to see a nice pattern developing, and it might give you some insight into how you cope generally, and it might help you challenge some of that and make it better for you. Anyway, I hope this has helped a little bit, and I wish you all the very, very best. Thank you very much for sending your message in. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for sending your message in, and I hope it helps you and many others that decide to tune in. The gorgeous Mr. Kipling and I, who is looking a little bit sleepy at the moment. Thank you very much for sending all your messages in via Tumblr. And we're doing our very best to get through them. We're quite busy at the moment, but bear with us. We are doing it as quickly as we can. Thank you so much, and it's a good night from me, and it is a good night from Mr. Kipling. Good night.